You walk out to the garden on a warm morning, expecting the first good tomatoes of the year, and you turn one over in your hand, and the whole bottom of it is black, sunken, and rotten, like it died from the underside up. You look down the row, and there are more, and some have split clean open along the top, and the leaves on a few plants are yellowing and curling, and you feel that sinking in your chest because you waited all this time and watered and weeded, and now the harvest you were counting on looks ruined. And most folks, when this happens, will go to the garden store and come home with a bottle of tomato spray, a sack of special tomato food, a jug of calcium, a fungicide, all of it promising to save the crop. I am going to show you today the real reasons tomatoes go wrong: the black bottoms, the cracking, the curling, the poor setting, and how to fix nearly every one of them for nothing with water and mulch and a little understanding. And the reason nobody tells you these troubles are mostly simple and free to fix is that there is a great deal of money in a worried gardener with a ruined tomato and a credit card. Here is the truth about a struggling tomato that the garden store would rather not lead with. The great majority of tomato troubles are not disease, and they are not bad luck, and they are not something you must buy a cure for. They are the plant telling you plainly about water and soil and air, about how steadily it is watered, what is in the ground, and how the air moves around it. A black, sunken bottom is not a rot you catch. It is the plant unable to move calcium up to the fruit because the watering swung from bone dry to soaked. A cracked tomato is not a disease. It is a fruit that got dry, then suddenly flooded and swelled faster than its skin could grow. Most of what looks like a plague on your tomatoes is the plant asking for one or two simple things, and once you learn to read it, you fix it for free, and you never panic at a black bottom again. My name is Jacob Stoltzfus. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We grow long rows of tomatoes every year for eating fresh all summer and for canning by the hundreds of jars to carry us through the winter. And in all that growing, we have never once bought a bottle of tomato spray or a sack of tomato food. We rid the plants. When a fruit shows a black bottom, we know the ground went dry. When they crack, we know the water came uneven, and we fix it with how we water and what we lay on the soil, not with anything from a store. I am going to give you that same reading today, plant by plant and trouble by trouble, so you can save your own crop with your own hands. I am going to walk you through the common troubles one at a time: the black bottom, the cracking, the curling leaves, the sun scald, the plant that grows huge and green but sets little fruit, and tell you the cause and the free fix for each. I am going to be honest about the few troubles you cannot fix, the true diseases, and how to tell those apart from the simple ones so you do not waste your worry. And there is one thing, one single habit in how you water and tend the soil that prevents the greatest share of all these troubles at once: black bottoms and cracking and much of the disease besides, and almost no one is taught it because it cannot be sold in a bottle. Stay for that part especially, because it is the heart of growing a sound tomato. Here is what you need, and it is next to nothing. You need water and a way to give it slow and deep at the root. You need mulch, and that is just straw, grass clippings, dried leaves, old hay, whatever you have to lay on the soil. It costs nothing. You need a little calcium for the soil over time, and that is crushed eggshells you saved, or old wood ash, or ground bone, kitchen and stove leftovers, not a purchase. You need a stake or a string to hold the plant up off the ground for air, and you need your own two hands and eyes to read the plants and pick off a bug or a bad leaf. Water, mulch, eggshells or ash, a stake, and your hands. That is the whole kit, and you very likely have all of it already. Now here is the honest thing I must tell you first, before any fix, because it keeps you from wasting effort on the wrong battle. Not every tomato trouble can be cured, and you must learn to tell the simple troubles from the true diseases. The simple ones, blossom end rot, cracking, sun scald, curling from heat, poor fruit set, are about water and soil and weather, and those you can fix and prevent for free, and that is most of what people face. But there are real diseases too. The late blight that turns whole plants brown and slimy in a wet season and can take a crop in days, the wilts that come up through the soil and choke a plant from within, and those I will not promise you a free, bottleless cure for, because that would be a lie. What I can tell you is how to tell them apart, how good watering and air and soil prevent most disease from ever taking hold, and when a plant is truly lost, so you pull it and protect the rest. I would rather be honest about the limit than sell you false hope, the same as I would want told to me. And a few words of plain safety before we begin. Do not eat fruit that is rotted, molded, or split and gone soft and sour. A black-bottomed tomato, you can cut the bad part away and eat the good if it is otherwise sound. But anything molded or fermented, give to the compost, not the table. The leaves and stems of the tomato plant are not for eating. It is the ripe fruit alone we eat. If you use wood ash or any lime on the soil for calcium, go easy and work it in well ahead of time, because too much, too strong, too close to the roots can burn the plant and throw the soil out of balance. A handful worked in, not a heap dumped on. And wash your hands and your harvest. Plain good sense in any garden. So let me show you the troubles one by what you see. The black, sunken, leathery bottom. That is blossom end rot, the most common worry of all, and it frightens people needlessly. It is not a rot you catch, and it does not spread plant to plant. It is the fruit going short of calcium at the moment it was forming, and nearly always the real cause is not that the soil lacks calcium, but that the watering swung wild, dry, then soaked, then dry, so the plant could not carry the calcium up steadily. The fix is steady, even, deep watering and mulch to hold it even, and a little calcium in the soil over time from your eggshells and ash. The first fruits of the season often show it, and then the plant rights itself once the watering steadies. Cut the bad end off the affected ones and eat the rest. Fix your watering, and the later fruit comes clean. Next, the cracking. Tomatoes split, either in rings around the shoulders or straight down the side. That is purely water. The fruit grew along slowly. Then a heavy rain or a heavy watering came after a dry spell, and the inside swelled faster than the skin could stretch, and it burst. The fix again is steady, even water, so the fruit never gets that sudden flood after drought. Mulch holds the soil even between rains, and in a wet spell, you can pick fruit a touch early at the first blush of color and let it finish ripening on the windowsill, safe from the next downpour. A cracked tomato is still good to eat right away if the crack is fresh and clean. Just use it soon before it spoils in the split. Then, the curling and yellowing leaves, which scares folks into spraying when most often nothing is wrong. Lower leaves yellowing and dying as the plant ages is natural. The plant feeds its fruit and lets its old bottom leaves go. Leaves curling upward or rolling in hard heat is the plant conserving water through a hot spell, and it passes when the heat does. It does not hurt the fruit. These you mostly leave be. It is only when curling comes with strange mottling, stunting, and twisted new growth that you may have a true disease or a pest, and I will come to telling those apart. Most curl and yellow is the plant managing heat and age, not a sickness to spray. Now let me show you the deeper way of it, the watering and tending that prevents most of these at the root. And here is the trick most people miss. The single greatest cause of blossom end rot, of cracking, and of much tomato trouble besides, is uneven water, a soil that swings from bone dry to soaked and back. The fix is to water deeply and less often, straight at the soil, and then to mulch heavily so the soil stays evenly damp between waterings. Most folks water a little often, and on the leaves, exactly wrong. Water a tomato deep, a good long soak at the base that wets the soil well down to the roots, and then leave it a few days until the top inch dries before you soak it again. Deep and seldom drives the roots down and keeps the plant steady, shallow, and often keeps the roots up top where the soil dries fast and swings hard. And then lay your mulch, straw, grass, leaves, hay, a good few inches thick over the soil all around the plant. That mulch is the secret. It holds the moisture even, so the plant never lurches from drought to flood. It keeps the soil from baking. It stops rain from splashing soil-borne disease up onto the leaves, and it smothers the weeds that would steal water besides. Deep watering at the root on a steady rhythm under a thick mulch, that one habit alone prevents the larger share of every trouble I have named, and it costs you nothing but the laying of it. There is more to the deeper tending. Water the soil, never the leaves. Wet leaves overnight are how most tomato disease takes hold, so water low and early in the day so any splash dries fast. Give the plant air, stake it or tie it up off the ground, and pinch out enough of the lower and inner leaves that air moves freely through it, because a plant that dries quickly after rain or dew stays far healthier than a damp, crowded one. Feed the soil, not the plant. A good helping of compost worked in at planting and laid on as mulch gives steady, gentle feeding all season, where a jolt of strong bottled fertilizer, especially one heavy in nitrogen, drives out great leafy green growth and few tomatoes. And keep your eye out as you pass. The big green hornworm that can strip a plant overnight is best dealt with by hand, picked off and dropped to the chickens, no spray needed. You will see its dark droppings on the leaves below before you see the worm itself. Let me give you the troubleshooting, plant by plant, the way I would walk it with you. Black sunken bottoms, blossom end rot, steady your watering, mulch deep, add eggshell and ash to the soil over time. The new fruit will come clean. Splitting and cracking, even out the water, mulch, and pick a touch early in wet spells. Plenty of big green leaves but little fruit. You have too much nitrogen or too much shade, or the flowers are not setting. Ease off rich feeding. Make sure the plant gets full sun, and in still air or under cover, give the flowering stems a gentle daily tap to shake the pollen and help them set. Blossoms falling off without fruiting, usually too hot or too cold a spell at flowering time. It passes as the weather settles. Pale, scalded patches on the fruit, like a sunburn, that is sun-scald from too much hard sun on exposed fruit, so do not strip all the leaves. Leave enough to dapple shade over the fruit. Wilting in the heat of day that recovers by evening is normal. Wilting that does not recover by morning, with no dryness to blame, may be a soil-borne wilt disease, and that plant you watch closely. And whole plants going brown, blotched and slimy fast in a wet stretch is the late blight. That one spreads, and a badly struck plant you pull and carry well away from the garden to protect the rest. for there is no free cure once it takes hold. Prevention by air and dry leaves and not crowding is your only real defense. Let me say a little more about that prevention, because it is worth more than any cure. A tomato that is grown right, deep, steady water, thick mulch, full sun, good air, water kept off the leaves, fed by compost and not forced, is a tomato that mostly does not get sick in the first place. Disease takes the weak, the crowded, the damp, the stressed. The strong, airy, evenly watered plant shrugs off what would fell a struggling one. So nearly everything I have told you for fixing a trouble is the same thing that prevents the trouble, and prevention is where your effort pays best. Tend the soil and the watering and the air, and you will spend far less time fighting troubles, because most of them never start. And let me tell you to save your eggshells and your wood ash all the year for this, the way we do. A bowl by the sink for crushed shells, a bucket by the stove for cooled ash, and these worked into the tomato ground give it the calcium and minerals it wants, slow and free, from what most folks throw away. It is a small, homely habit, but it is exactly how the old gardens fed themselves. Nothing bought, the kitchen and the stove feeding the garden feeding the kitchen, around and around, for nothing. Let me name a few more troubles you may meet, so none of them catch you off guard. A tomato that comes out lumpy and scarred at the bottom, puckered with brown seams, is what the old folks called cat facing, and it comes from cold weather while the flower was forming. Nothing you did wrong, and it passes as the season warms. The fruit is still good to eat, just ugly. A fruit that feels light and hollow, with empty chambers inside, usually means the flowers were poorly pollinated, often in still, muggy air or extreme heat. And again, the daily tap on the flower stems to shake the pollen helps. Tiny, pale spots or pinholes in the leaves are most often just sun and dew and weather, not a plague. And if your whole plant sat and sulked and would not grow after planting, it likely went into cold ground too early. A tomato wants warm soil, and one set out a week or two later into warm ground will overtake one rushed into the cold. Learning these by sight means you stop fearing every blemish and learn which troubles matter and which simply pass. A gardener who can read the plant spends his summer tending, not worrying. Now, I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters. Think about who profits from your ruined tomato. There is a whole shelf at the garden store built on that black-bottomed fruit in your hand. The special tomato fertilizer, the calcium spray sold as the blossom end rot cure, the fungicides, the tonics, all of it priced to a worried gardener who waited all summer and cannot bear to lose the crop. But the truth, the plain truth, is that the great share of tomato troubles are fixed for free. With how you water and what you lay on the soil and a few eggshells you already had. There is no money in telling a man that his black-bottomed tomato wants nothing but steadier water and a handful of mulch. There is no money in a gardener who reads his plants and fixes them with his own hands and the leavings of his own kitchen. So the simple reading of a plant, knowledge every gardener once carried, was let fade, and in its place came the shelf of bottles, each one promising to cure a thing that good water and mulch would have prevented for nothing. The plant was always telling you what it needed. They just made sure you stopped knowing how to listen and learned to buy instead. So here is what I want you to do. Next time a tomato shows a black bottom or a crack, do not run to the store. Stop and look at your watering. Has it been even and deep, or has it swung dry to soaked? Lay a thick mulch of straw or grass or leaves over the soil around your plants today, and from now on, Water deep and steady at the root, not on the leaves. Save your eggshells and ash for the ground. Do that, and watch the new fruit come in clean and whole, and know that you saved your own crop for nothing by reading the plant instead of buying a bottle. Tell me in the comments below, what has gone wrong with your tomatoes this year? The black bottoms, the cracking, the curling, or a plant all leaf and no fruit? Tell me what you are seeing, and I will do my best to help you read it. And tell me the tomato your family has always grown. I read every one of these, and the gardens you all tend are the reason I keep doing this. Next time, I am going to show you how this farm holds water in the ground and keeps the weeds down all summer with nothing but what falls free on the land, the mulching that does half the garden's work for you. It is the very thing that prevents half the troubles we talked about today. Until then, water deep and steady, mulch it thick, feed the soil from your own kitchen, and remember the people who built this country with their hands, new things we are only just starting to remember.